Hello, everybody. This is Wendee Lee, and I'm about to spend some time with you on Beyond the Fandom. Buckle up. Let's get ready for a wild ride.
Well, should we start from the beginning then?
Sure.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for taking the time out. It's really awesome to talk with you. I'm a big fan. You've been in the industry for a long time, a long, successful career with many different characters, like Faye from Cowboy Bebop, Bulma in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Super more recently, Yoruichi from Bleach, which is another big character, and many, many more. Which character do you think is most popular amongst the fans?
This answer will probably answer many of your questions.
Okay.
And I think it's an obvious. It's my one and only Faye Valentine.
Well, it's an iconic character, so
Exactly.
people love Faye.
Aw.
So is that the most conventions you go to is Faye? Do they call you out for other things as well?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Haruhi Suzumiya is a big one, and Konata from Lucky Star, and I've got a number of video game characters, and there's a number of them, but if I'm going to name drop, then I need to get my IMDb up,
Right.
so I'm just going to my computer.
Yeah, that's fine. And that's what I was looking at. So many, just going through your history on there when I was talking, a live stream the other day with our audience, just kind of talking about things that were coming up, and I said I was going to be talking to you soon. And I wanted to make sure I hit some of the, the other series and other characters that people have recognized you from. And I was going, there's so many on there. It's incredible.
It's ridiculous.
It's really incredible.
Well, fortunately, it is all added up to me holding a record for the most dubbed content by a North American actress. So I'm happy. I'm sure there are many catching up. I hear rumors all the time, but I've got over 450 roles I've done. So
yeah, and you're still going too. So
and still going.
Yep.
Yes. Hopefully, it's nice to be a working actor.
Yeah, definitely.
Actually have an income. Yes.
Yeah.
I think fans sometimes forget that we're living, breathing people that rely on our work and our roles
Right.
to continue to make a viable living.
Yeah, definitely, and that's you got to pay the bills. So
Yeah. And I love, the world that we're in. I love the variety of being able to carry on as a voice actor and actress, and also directing and adapting material and localizing.
Right.
All of that is really that's what makes it most fun for me, is the variety.
Yeah, there's definitely, and you're not just, like you said, in just the acting part. You've grown into the rest of the industry. Like you said, you were doing adapting scripts. You've done directing for a very long time, been involved in numerous projects, long projects, and some short ones as well. So which character out of all the ones you've played, which is a lot, like we said, a lot, which one of those do you think is most important to you?
Like I said, Faye is going to answer most of these questions for you.
Okay.
Faye is just such an iconic character and has such a Western feel and groove to her, and she's just somebody I slipped into so naturally, and I've never had a character quite as cool and quite as cunning and complex and interesting, and the seductress that she is just, she's so iconic and so unique. So she's closest to me.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely, you associate yourself more with her than anybody else, and I guess that kind of role as well. Because there's been over your career, there's been several characters that are very similar, and it's a type that you play. Whether it was Hannah from Fear Effect or Faye from Cowboy Bebop, they're sultry, seductive in a way, hardened as well, and guarded, but also very commanding, which I like. They're strong female characters.
Yeah, I'm doing my part to get cracks in that glass ceiling and have
definitely.
women be, badass, tough, feminine, and sensitive all at the same time. Anything I can do to advance building the image of women in media and having girls come across strong and yet still very comfortable in their sensuality, that's something I'm very inspired by.
So what were you doing before you started voice acting?
Nobody's ever asked me that question. That's really cool. This is something I'm interested in asking other actors too, and actually people in all walks of life, because the national average now is that most people have 5 to 8 careers in a lifetime, and mine always revolved around the arts.
Mm-hmm.
I did the best I could to find other forms of creative outlets that would support me as an actor.
Right.
So I did a number of things. I was a dance teacher for many years. I taught ballet and jazz, and got into choreographing very early in my career as a teenager. So I was actually working for local theaters and choreographing shows and quickly became a director that would also choreograph and did a lot of musical theater. And I choreographed videos for a number of up and coming bands. And I had a number of other careers. I, of course, had my stint with retail, and at one point, the needle phobe that I am ended up being a person working at an earring store piercing ears, and that was something else. And
Right.
I used to work as a makeup artist for some time, so it was always on the outskirts of the arts.
Right. But somewhere around it, at least involved in it.
Yeah, I mean, really, I've been blessed with a number of abilities and some talents, and thank goodness I could finagle all of them into an income in some way or another, which is something I highly recommend for anybody who's interested in getting into this industry as an actor. Find other things that you're passionate about that can support your acting.
Right.
It's very expensive to have demos and take workshops, and you have to have some, photos and cards, and you need to be able to continue to support yourself and have a wardrobe and look great. And even though you're not in front of the camera the majority of the time, you're still very much being represented as a visual product as an actor. So
Yeah.
you really need to have a solid income to take the risk on a industry like this where employment is never guaranteed.
Yeah, definitely. It's a hit or miss field, I guess. Sometimes you get the break, sometimes you don't.
Absolutely.
But you have to be able to support yourself in the process of pursuing your dream. So gotta have a job.
That's right. And you want to find something that you're passionate about, so you don't fall into the depressive trappings of not having work for periods of time. And even now, we're running into a lot of people that are sort of bypassing the whole actor's journey, which equips you with the psychology to be able to handle the rejection that inevitably you're going to experience as an actor. And now I'm running into a lot of people that say, "Oh, I could never get in front of an audience and perform," which used to be unheard of.
Yeah.
To be a professional actor and you can't get on a stage and command an audience it still gives me whiplash. But what I'm finding is they then don't have the psychological experience and conditioning and training to be able to handle the rejection that we're up against constantly. So
yeah, that could
really
be very stressful.
finding something you're passionate about that brings you joy and inspiration is the way to go if you want to pursue acting on any level.
Yeah. Oh, that's good information. That's very because I was going to ask you, you've been directing for a long time as well. So if people are just now getting into or want to start doing voice acting or just acting in general, what kind of advice you would have for them? One of those would be learn to accept rejection.
Yes, but that's easier said than done. That's something you have to practice, and you get better at it the more you experience it, or it breaks you. And there's an old adage in Hollywood of the actor's chip on his shoulder, which is very common for men, because for a number of reasons. But my take would be because after a period of time, if you've been insulted enough and rejected enough, it's going to respond with a kind of anger or, dare I say, hostility that comes through. And there's a certain vibe that actor who's really got a chip on his shoulder has. So I've seen the patterns happen and occur so many times, but in order to kind of get a jump on that, it's good to know in advance this is what you're up against and be prepared for it and conditioned for it on some level.
Okay.
So it doesn't consume you. It doesn't become all consuming.
Right. And what about as far as auditioning techniques, anything like that?
Oh, there's just oceans of advice I could give.
Okay.
But there's many people that have really worked on that and created books and videos, and Adventures in Acting through Bang Zoom is a great source, and Tara and Yuri Lowenthal have a great book about acting and everything that's involved with being behind the microphone, and I think they have a second book coming out, and I think Bob Bergen has some great information. There's quite a bit of really good information that's available if you do your research.
Okay.
But I just cannot imagine being an actor any other way than pursuing the actor's journey, getting in front of an audience, taking workshops, performing, committing material to memory, interacting with an audience, learning the techniques techniques of how you engage an audience. Performing in community theater, in college, wherever your resources are available to you where you live, take advantage of them and start building a resume with credits.
Okay. Practice.
Yeah, but really just getting into the deep end of what it's like to be an actor and seeing if it's for you, trying it on. And if it is something that inspires passion in you and you're determined and it's just something you must do, then do it right, do it professionally, and get a great demo and start collecting a bag of characters that are unique to you. And one of the best ways to do that is to start with the people that you admire, their performances and their characters, and emulate them. Not necessarily voice match them, but try them on with your own voice and see how close you can get. And then just dial that character a little bit left or right of center. I always lean to the left as a liberal, but as a liberal thinker. But, try recording your stuff and practicing syncing something to picture and see if you can match lip flaps and, take recordings of performances that you like and then make them your own and try writing for characters that you're interested in. There's so much you can do on your own now with technology, but more than anything, really experience it.
With how far we've come, and like you said, with technology, I think it opens up a lot more avenues than were back when, in the earlier days when Japanese animation and video games started to become more, I guess, in depth, and we actually had characters come out that were voiced in video games. Animation in general has come a long way. So I think technology and having the ability to do these things is a good start in just practicing.
Exactly. And there's so many how-tos now. There's really good guidance from the top professionals in our industry. So I would do your research, get referrals, and make sure that you're getting advice from the source. And then something to seriously consider is where you live. If you're not in a center that is a voiceover capital, your ability to work is incredibly hindered. So at some point, if acting is what you want to do, you need to move to the source where the employment is. And coming to Los Angeles is no easy feat.
Yeah.
It's a very, very expensive place to live, and it's the capital of talent, USA, and there are amazing people here that are also struggling to stay employed. So It's really something to consider. You're stepping into probably the most popular, most sought-after profession in the country. Certainly one of them.
Yeah,
as far as entertainment goes, everybody wants to be an actor, but everybody and their freaking brother wants to be a voice actor. So it's something to consider. If you think you're that good, and I mean really, really good, then good luck. Give it a whirl, but be prepared to have a secondary source of income.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you get into the directing side of things?
Well, I touched on it a little. I was a theater director and a choreographer, and then I started directing and mostly staging and choreographing videos. And when I was starting to grow and collect credits as a voice artist, I knew right away I wanted to get into adapting scripts and directing. So I raised my hand and made a lot of noise and begged for an opportunity, and it took a long time to get recognized as a potential director. And there weren't many women. In fact, there were no women that I was working with at the time. But later, as I got into original animation, many American directors for original animation are women. And I think that helped me get an opportunity, ultimately, recording ADR and lip sync to picture.
Okay.
Which is the hardest form of recording by far.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of skill.
Yeah. Lining everything up, and I can imagine how difficult that process was. And they've come a long way in the process of doing it as it is now today. But back when the earlier times, I can imagine that was difficult.
Yes, it was all analog, so we didn't have any way to be cued in as far as when to begin speaking, and it was just incessant, a constant repetition until you got it right, and one line of dialogue at a time, and then you move on to the next, which we still do, but it's all digital and automated now, so it's much easier to get the hang of it, especially if you have a musical background of any kind. Even athletic, if you have any dance ability, or even if you've done martial arts, singing, playing an instrument, percussion, anything like that helps you a lot, gives you a huge advantage with timing
Yeah,
when
that's what
it
I was
comes to
thinking
ADR. Yeah.
because of the timing part of it. Huh.
Yes.
On the topic of
Um,
ADR and adapting scripts, this is something that I included extra after the fact. Is one of the things that you did earlier in your career was Power Rangers. You not only did voicing, but you did directing for ADR sessions, and you adapted the scripts. And I'm curious because I've talked to a few of the Rangers throughout my time interviewing, and I've gotten their side. But coming from your side, I'd like to know what the experience was like.
Ay, ay, ay. It was incredible, Rangers. My little Alpha 6.
Right. That's so
it,
good.
it was incredible. It was so fun because it gave me numerous creative outlets to pursue.
Right.
And it was one of the first live action franchises that I worked with from the beginning. Power Rangers was a product that Saban tried to put together for 10 years. We did over 3 full promotional, fully shot film versions of using the foreign footage, the Japanese footage, and then mixing it with live action actors here in Los Angeles, and ultimately getting it packaged and sold and ready to go. And we just kept kind of laughing because we kept seeing this regenerated Japanese footage of these monsters in these big, puffy suits,
Yeah.
and the very kind of rudimentary special effects.
Yeah.
And did not think for a minute it would ever work. I have to be honest. We all thought it was sort of a joke.
Right.
And then finally, the last go around of creating a promo package and putting it all together and upping the effects and making the kids kind of edgy and cute, suddenly connected, and this franchise was born, and I was just excited to be a part of it in every way I could. And I was lucky enough to land one of the first villainesses playing the voice of Scorpina.
Yep.
And she was just so beautiful and so interesting, and just the humor that was woven into the villains and the sort of curses will get you next time cliffhangers. It was just so fun, and Saban actually tried to search for that Japanese actress who they wanted to bring to Hollywood and create new episodes for, but we never succeeded.
Yeah, because she was a lot of the footage was from the Japanese part, and then a lot of the civilian parts and the ADR came from the stateside. So I can imagine trying to bring a talent over so you can incorporate more of civilian and more scenes with some of that talent from that filmed over there.
Right. I think they succeeded with a lot of the martial arts team and some other individual characters, but unfortunately, my dreams of doing a lot more work with Scorpina were halted at some point.
Right.
But I did get to do a revival voicing her for the first time in I don't know, has it been 15, 20 years, however long it's been?
Right.
When we just had a big campaign last year, I did a couple commercial spots voicing her, along with Goldar, and who else was in it? I can't remember, but and the original Rangers. When I went in to record, Amy Jo was coming out after doing her part.
Oh, awesome.
So it was so fun to kind of, have a brush with all those old friends again.
It's really just a great community, and I've noticed a lot of, especially in the Capcom side of things with Resident Evil, is there's a lot of people that have come from the Rangers universe that are highly invested in the video game side, especially with Capcom. And a big part of that was an actor, Ruben Langdon, who's been with Capcom for a very long time, and he did the stunt work for later parts of the series for Power Rangers, and it seems to be there's a crossover, a networking between those two different fandoms, which is incredible.
Yeah, Ruben is so wonderful, and I think he has done a lot for upping the quality and technique of the mocap and martial arts.
Yeah.
And he's an amazing guy, and that work continues. I've been directing actually for that studio a bit, and voicing for some of their big titles too, and I'm just not sure if I can speak about the specifics yet. I have to look online to double check to see if it's already available. But I had some fun with Resident Evil too. I got to play Svetlana, the Russian Prime Minister.
In Damnation, right? Which the CGI, this is a great movie, by the way.
Oh, so fun to be a part of that.
Now, were you I thought I had seen credits to your name, but it might have been a different person. But we were talking about this the other day, and they brought up that you might have voiced Alyssa in the Outbreak series.
I think I did. It looks like I did. Oh, okay. So Resident Evil, Outbreak, Rita's original voice, Wendee Lee.
Oh, there you go.
Well, there you go.
There it is. Oh yeah, we're trying. We're trying to push for that to bring that game back. Hopefully, we can inspire. We have a very large audience from the Resident Evil community, and we're trying to build, I guess, the buzz about some of these older games that we would like to see come back as well. One of those would be Outbreak. So hopefully we can get them to make a part 3 or at least go back and remaster it and make it HD, because that game was ahead of its time, and I think it wasn't ready for the multiplayer back in the early 2000s. Now would be perfect. A lot of fun.
Great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun playing with friends.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, that's maybe why we're seeing. I've had a few like nostalgic games come back.
Yeah.
Recently, and I think it has a lot to do with what happens with anime as well. Is that it has a 7-year cycle. Say a teenager plays it, and 7 years later they turn on their younger cousin or sibling or what have you, and it's fresh to them once it's age appropriate, and then it lives on, and then we keep building our fan base.
Yeah, and it keeps going down the next generation, and then even the older generations that might move on from it, come back to it later, like you said, is the nostalgia part of it. Like, I remember that was an important part of my childhood, and it's nice, like, say, watching Power Rangers now with my son, who's 7. He's watching the earlier series, and I watched it when I was just a little bit older than him. I think I might have been 9 when Power Rangers came out, but it was a big part of my childhood. So now me and him are sharing the experience of watching it and talking with some of the Rangers like Johnny Bosch, just incredible people that I've talked to, and sharing that experience with him. Be like, hey, I talked to that person. We met them at a convention, share the stories that way. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, exactly. And then it's nostalgic for you as you watch him taking in the first seasons and brings up your memories.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then talking about it.
Thing that we can archive material and recall it and share it. It lives on. So that used to be unique to Japan. They release everything onto DVD or video, and you can always go back and find it. But that was kind of a newer concept to Hollywood marketing, 10, 15 years ago. I think now they get it. This stuff lives on.
Yeah, it does.
Well, I just have to say thank you to you and the fans that are helping to create buzz for and a demand for new titles, updated titles from some of the older ones that are classic. That's really lovely.
Yeah, there's they hold a special place in our heart. Like Fear Effect is very important to a lot of people, and it just disappeared on us, and it kind of was heartbreaking because you grow attached to the characters.
The style of animation is really cool.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And even today, with a little bit of refining, it's a very beautiful animation style.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And I have to say, they were so ahead of their time to be able to play a character that was edgy, commanding, strong, and she's got blurred lines with being bisexual and interested in guys, interested in girls. Not many people were doing that at the time, and just being that inclusive to me was, I was very happy to be a part of that. I thought it was great.
Yeah, and it was kind of revolutionary, I guess, in the industry and in media in general, because it was still a very, it was becoming open, and there were a lot of people that were starting to come out and say, this is what I am. You need to accept us as we are. And this was kind of one of the first times we've seen a game character come out and do that. And not only that, she's a very tough character. She's a central character. I think it helped bridge a gap between what was okay and acceptable in video games and what was taboo. And there was a very beautiful relationship that Hannah had as well.
Exactly. There was a real sensitivity between them. There's a respect and friendship in addition to anything else. It's like the sensuality just kind of came out of, these girls are just too hot for this not to happen, which was great. But that it's not defining who they are by any means. There was it was a bit of a love story as far as, whenever they were in peril, their hearts were on the line.
Yeah, exactly. And that's an amazing
Very
thing.
well done.
It was.
So ahead of its time as far as that goes. So I've never really played a character like that since. I've played a ton of characters that dig chicks. They usually don't put it that much into the story, but I can tell. I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember her. She likes girls.
Part of what makes Hannah great, too, is her attitude, I guess, being very tough and sarcastic, But we noticed between the first Fear Effect and then Retro Helix, the prequel, there was an up in her sarcastic humor side. The first one, she was very sarcastic, but the second part was a lot more humorous, a lot more jabby type humor. Did you have any impact on that? Because I know coming from a set of characters that you've done, they all, like I said, they're very similar in the way that Hannah has her sarcastic nature, that seductive sarcasm as well.
Well, I like to think even though they're similar, they're all very different.
Right, yes,
I hope. I try to bring something new to each one of them. As an actor, as a voice actor, primarily you will work with your natural voice range.
Right.
That's your money voice. That's the one that's going to get you cast the most.
Mm-hmm.
But then I just sort of dial them a little bit right or left of center and maybe pitch them up a little or bring them down or really lean on their backstory. And I think with Hannah, she's got so much damage from her past that is lightly alluded to or they go more in depth into it in some cases. But I think she's got a lot that she's covering up and that she uses humor as a survival mechanism.
Oh, good. Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think she just, she's wounded and vulnerable and she has to remain in control in order to keep a lid on that. And when something gets too close to grazing that, she runs the risk of losing her power.
Yeah. Her that she uses that humor and that sarcasm as a shield, basically.
Right. Like so many of us do. With most comics, are usually the very sad clown under it all.
Yeah, which is sad. The fact that if as a comedian you're going out there making people laugh, at the same time you have some issues, and a lot of your comedy comes from your own personal issues.
Exactly. That's why the truth is always the best humor, because it's something people can relate to.
Right, relatable.
And it's brave, and I think Hannah's very brave, and she's using that, I'll make a joke at the expense of this experience to lighten the mood and make it more like, look at the irony of how ridiculous the danger is. Yeah.
Right. Do you remember much about the recording process for Retro Helix?
I haven't thought about it in all these years, but as you ask me, it's all coming back. I remember the room. I remember going up, I think it was the second or third floor in that office complex, and the soundproofing and the way the engineer was positioned and how the team was very young and super inspired, and we were all a little bit giddy about the process because it was a first for most of us. It was my very first video game, and I thought, I'd been hearing about these titles. It was something I wanted to get into. I didn't really know how to do that, and I think I got request for that game, and it was the first time I had contact with those business partners, and it just went great. Oh, I think they even had some of the team members had me sign some DVDs or something. Maybe they were VHS at the time. Oh my gosh. Do you know what year that was?
I want to say it was 2001, I think, for Retro Helix. 2001, 2002.
Yeah, I think we recorded in like 99, but it didn't come out until then.
Right.
So it was still very new technology, and it was just so exciting to have my first experience of that. And honestly, I still get those kinds of butterflies every time there's a new advent of technology or a new avenue to pursue as an actor. So it was a moment of growth. It was great. When I found out that Dorothy Fawn was going to be my counterpart, I was just like giddy. I think I ended up calling her from the car, and we had a squeal fest.
Having that relationship and then being able to work on something together is amazing too. So.
Oh, and she's just so incredible, and my go-to girl that I cast all the time, and that somebody else paired us together and agreed that our voices complemented each other and we played off of each other so well, and it was very exciting.
We briefly talked earlier about the fact that Fear Effect has come back, and the small indie company called Sushi developed Sedna. They had a new cast. The cast did a very good job of emulating and bringing the characters back to what you guys had established earlier in the series. Have you actually seen anything from that, or have you looked into it or heard about? Has it come across you other than this interview?
No, I haven't heard any murmurs about Fear Effect in all these years. You were the first one to break the news to me that I was recast. That's always difficult.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that the title lives on and that more content can be brought to the fans. And gosh, if there's ever an opportunity to reprise her, I would love to be a part of that cast.
Yeah, I think it would be good to have. Well, we've talked about this too with the new cast, and they understand the situation they came into with taking on roles that were already established from very established actors as well. They've all agreed for the most part that if any of the original cast comes back, they completely understand having to step to the side, bringing that and giving the character back to who was had voiced it before. So there's a lot of respect there, and that's so very in the industry itself. There's a lot of respect. I can tell.
Oh, that's really nice to hear. We often don't get much information. We just hear about the final outcome. So
Right.
we'll often feel a little bruised why we weren't
Yeah.
invited to the party. But if the job is presenting itself in a different city our original cast isn't available, we understand it's business.
Right.
And that's another little bit of advice I would give anybody interested in becoming a voice actor. You get replaced sometimes. Here I am decades into my career and I got recast. It happens. It's just, you have to understand the nature of business and budgets and locations and how things turn out and not take them personally and understand that it's for the best of the title.
Yeah, we talked to Allison Court last year about that issue with Resident Evil. Eventually, because she had played the character of Claire Redfield for 20 years, and she was recast, which completely shocked her. And as much as she was upset because she loves the character and she loves the fans, it's a business at the same time. So, you gotta, I guess, look at it from the professional side and understand that part. And I know it's got to sting because you're attached to someone, attached to characters that you've brought to life and the fan base is behind them. But sometimes that's what they do, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Things come up where people aren't available
Right.
or the budget doesn't allow for the original cast, or there's a number of variables. But when you are working professional, you are in a business and you have to understand the business. And the business is based in profit. So we have to do what we can to do our part to turn the wheels of profit and keep the business going. And sometimes that means you're not included. And sometimes you're asked to voice match other people that are being replaced. And
Right.
what we always try to do as a community in general is to find out the reason why. Is that person moving on and not willing to do the part anymore, or has moved on to bigger things, or is geographically not available? There's a number of reasons why that comes up. And sometimes we'll choose to pass, or because we don't agree with the circumstance or we don't feel comfortable taking that person's role, or we know someone else has to fill the role. It's going to happen with or without us as individuals, so we'll choose to be a part of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Since you've been on both sides for acting and directing, which side do you prefer? Do you lean to the most?
Well, honestly, I do more directing because it's more volumes of episodes and work and hours of work.
Okay.
But I will always be an actor first. I was an actor since I was a child, and I think of myself as an actor, singer, dancer, choreographer, and that dubbing is part of all of that, and directing is also a part of all of that. But there are days where I get to just be an actress and go from session to session, and I have to say I get a little giddy every time I get to be just an actor because it has so fewer responsibilities.
Right.
It's just a blast to breathe in, have fun for a couple hours, go have a lunch break, and then breeze over to another studio and hang out with those beautiful people. And it's very satisfying, and I don't have to do as much preparation and be so conscientious of driving the ship as a director and steering the entire session and
Right.
keeping everybody happy and inspiring everyone. And I get to just go and do my little puzzle piece, add my 2 cents, and move on. And that's really fun.
Yeah.
But the jobs I depend on the most are my long-term jobs that tend to be full-time and carry on for weeks at a time, sometimes months at a time with the same production team.
Okay.
And then there's a real joy in that because you're all pulling together to create this product, and it's tangible when it's all said and done, and it's very rewarding.
Yeah, I can imagine being on both sides of it, whether you're creating the character or you're voicing the character, bringing the character to life, or on the directing side where you're pretty much creating the character, how this character needs to their mannerisms, their characteristics, and then directing the person to be, this is what we're looking for. So it's just incredible just to see that you're on both sides. It's got to be such a fulfilling, I guess, career as a whole.
It is. And it provides provides a lot of variety for me and
Right.
opportunity. And that's the thing. I am not a scheduled kind of, you know, wake up at the same time, go to bed at the same
Right.
time,
Right.
disciplined person. I'm very spontaneous, and the more variety and spice in my career, the more I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I really I appreciate spending time at home in my home office, prepping scripts and adapting and perfecting sync and finding the best selection of writing that fits a character and sounds very natural in English. Love all that.
Hmm.
Love casting, finding new talent, bringing in people that everybody loves. Love directing and shaping each performance. Love singing theme songs or creating lyrical content for
Right.
adapting, rhyme and prose and poetry and bringing it to life in English. So there's just a number of things going on, and
Yeah,
and
it's
I'm
a lot.
dancing again. So I'm working on bringing some choreographic ideas back together and planning potentially a little YouTube channel of my work. So
Oh, cool. Definitely.
yeah, I'm hoping to really have more creative outlets since it's easier to bring a final product to viewers. I'm hoping to take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's another thing along the lines of technology. Where we are today is it makes it a lot easier for people to put content out to express their creativity. Where before, a lot of it was you had to know the doors to get into that system. But now with YouTube, live streaming broadcasts like Twitch or Mixer, things like that, it allows people who don't have those avenues to start their own avenue and start making their own content, their own little creative side of what they want to do and put it out there for people to enjoy.
What an amazing thing. What an
Mm-hmm.
amazing time to be alive technologically.
Yep.
I can only imagine the advances we will see in the
Exactly.
next 10 to 20 years.
Yep.
Who knows? We'll all be living like the Jetsons one day.
Right. The world is
Let's
at your
hope.
fingertips. Do you have any
Yeah, I
characters?
mean, now they're
Uh-huh.
saying that a lot of recording artists are sort of challenging each other,
Right.
unofficially to film their entire videos on an iPhone.
Yeah.
What an amazing thing. I
Yep.
mean, the quality in your handheld computer is an amazing thing. So
Yeah.
get
All
out
right
there
there
and
in
get
your hand.
creative. Anybody who's inspired to, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any characters that you look back on that you might regret, or roles that you regret not taking?
As an actor, you want to be a working actor, so
Mm-hmm.
it's almost unheard of to turn down anything. It's like any role that comes your way is a challenge and a paycheck,
Right.
and you want to be a working actor at all times. So there's very little that I've turned down. There's only been a couple times I was uncomfortable with content, and
Mm-hmm.
that might be the only reason I didn't do a part. What we try to do in presenting roles when you're casting is you try to divulge as much as you can about something that's, say, risque or involves nudity or
Right.
has a lot of cussing or any kind of content that might be questionable. We try to disclose that up front so people know what they're getting into. That's what we've learned from a pattern of people going, wait a minute, I didn't know this was, going to involve a love scene, or I didn't know this
Yeah.
guy was going to be using F bombs left and right. So we tell people in advance and then they can choose to or not.
Okay.
As far as there's been some that got away, the roles that got away. Sometimes I've wanted to audition for roles that people wouldn't let me audition for because they had me in mind for something else.
Oh, okay.
But there's nothing really big that's come along yet. There was a time when Sony Pictures got involved with Bondi and the Cowboy Bebop franchise,
Mm-hmm.
and they were getting ready to do the feature film.
Right.
And we were all terrified that they were going to voice match us or use celebrities to dub us.
Yeah.
So that became sort of a fight to the finish. I really wanted to be able to keep our cast together. And
Right.
I think our fans actually began a petition and helped express to Sony how important that was to us. So that could have been one that got away. Whew.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think
Now we just pray if there's ever a live action film that we could be in the, put us in the cantina scene. Give us a little cameo somewhere.
Exactly.
We would love to be on camera if anything should come from any of that. We know that there's a live action series in the works, so we're all holding our breath on that one,
Yeah,
a little
gotta
nervous
pay
about the
tribute.
outcome, but really hoping for the best.
Yeah. I've always been a supporter, if they decide to take characters that are well established that people love, that they shouldn't make it live action. At least it should remain animated, whether it's on a bigger scale where they switch it from, hand-drawn animation to CGI animation or something along those lines. But I think that if you take, for example, like the Uncharted game series with Nolan North, or he's really, that whole cast has been phenomenal for that series, and you get very attached to those characters after so many years of playing these adventures with them that if they go make a live action movie, it just wouldn't be the same because it's not Nolan's voice.
Right. I understand. And, often I think Hollywood proper forgets that voice actors are live actors as well.
Right.
That we all have on camera and or stage experience. And that's why they utilize us so often for mocap, because we have the animated physicality to go with it.
Right.
So yeah, it'd be fun to be involved with any live action versions of some of these iconic characters. That's for sure.
Right, and whether or not the cast, whoever they cast for it, is a live action part, but they definitely should have the original cast for the voicing to come in and at least have a cameo or some nice tribute to you.
I think it's a great idea. It would be a quick shoot, and it would just be such a wonderful surprise for the audience. It would be also sort of like a wink and an embrace of recasting the characters, but still keeping us involved, where it all makes it very friendly and supportive.
Yeah, definitely. So many fandoms you've been a part of. Obviously, Cowboy Bebop is one of the major ones. You voiced Bulma briefly in Dragon Ball, but you came back and voiced her for Super, which is awesome. And Bleach, Naruto, game-wise, Persona, Dynasty Warriors. You've been in so many properties that have stretched and have these huge fandoms, and I'm sure you go to a lot of conventions for those fandoms. Do you have any memories from any conventions you went to that you'd like to share?
Well, last year we did an amazing, gosh, was it just last year? It feels like it was 2 years ago. We did a big Cowboy Bebop experience, and
Cool.
it was just amazing. And we brought the main cast together, and then they had a big live show with dancers and musicians and incredible video footage and graphics. It was really phenomenal. It was something we were hoping we could add to our Bebop stop. We
Right.
often hope to be booked at different conventions as a team.
Yeah.
With Bo, Steve, Mary, Melissa, and I. And we were hoping we could do one of these Bebop stops and have the Cool Cat experience for as a premium, for audience members to see elsewhere. We started to go to a convention in Texas, but it was quickly canceled. So I'm sure it's an expensive endeavor, but it's wonderful to be a part of that for sure.
Well, it's good too to bring you guys back together for all the conventions like that, because you create a family while recording and constantly working together and doing different projects together. But to have something like the Cowboy Bebop family coming back together for conventions is got to be a great experience. Just a good feeling to see everybody you know and love, and then share that with the fans again.
Well, the way that you've encapsulated it with family is just so true. We have such great affection and respect for each other that we're just delighted anytime we get a chance to all come together. And secretly, we really love hanging out too. So we take turns having little get-togethers at each other's houses.
That's so cool. That's awesome.
I think it's Melissa's turn to host next.
Okay. If fans want to get autographs, because at conventions, a big part is meeting the fans and signing autographs and taking pictures. But for people who can't make it to conventions, is there a place where they can go to purchase an autograph, or anything on social media wise where they can connect with you directly?
Sure. Yeah, I have a PO box. It's on my Facebook page, and I don't think it's on Twitter. I don't think I put it anywhere there. But yeah, I'll get the address out, and people are welcome to send items to my PO box in Studio City. And I always have something new that's coming in that I get to sign and read and hear a lovely exchange with fans, and it's really lovely to be able to personalize that for people.
Is there anything coming up we should be looking for? Any projects coming down the road here?
Oh, I'm just so excited that I'm now currently working on a second season of March Comes In Like a Lion.
Okay.
So I'm adapting scripts and working with a second writer, and I'll be directing that and playing additional parts in that show. But I'm learning more than I ever imagined about shogi, but it's very exciting.
And I saw the new season of
Yeah,
The Exorcist has recently came out not too long ago. I was watching that earlier, so.
Oh, yeah, great. I was so excited that finally came out. I haven't been able to talk about that one for a long time, so that was exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm directing a lot of games right now, and I'm not sure what I can talk about.
Okay.
Well, we can, let's see. So they've got Fire Emblem up. I've been doing a lot of work on Fire Emblem. And Near Automata for last year was a big event. That was so exciting. I'm very proud of that. And Fire Emblem Heroes and Valkyria and Danganronpa. That was a good one. Killing Harmony. More Lego. Let's see what else. Cyborg 009. Berserk. Tales of Berseria. Okay, and then I've got all my Disney stuff, Ever After High and Monster High and Polly Pockets. We wrapped that up.
Polly Pockets is coming back.
Oh, just amazing.
Yeah.
Let's see what else here. Persona. I think we have a lot of Neptunias out.
Okay.
So that's always exciting. And, this isn't one that I directed, but was really excited to be a part of. Let me find it. Detective Pikachu.
Oh, that's right, Detective Pikachu. Which?
I'm Dorothy Fisher in that, and also Louise Mulligan.
They said they're planning on making a live action of that with Ryan Reynolds voicing Pikachu.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, it's so popular. I hope they do a great job. I hope it turns out really good.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll pull you into it for something at least.
That'd be so fun.
Right.
Exactly.
Awesome. So do you have any final thoughts for the fans?
Oh, I'm just forever grateful to our wonderful fans. I get such lovely comments and fan mail, and I always look forward to opportunities to meeting everybody in person. And I just have to say I am ever in your debt and grateful for all of the support that we receive. And I hope that all the care and love that goes into the work that I do reaches your heart and matters to you guys as viewers.